We want to find her. We don't know where she is. Everyone that's watching this, all your viewers, I'm going directly to you. I beg you to, share it, retweet it, put it on Instagram, put it on your Facebook, talk about it on TikTok, talk about it on YouTube, get it out there, so the more people that see it, the better.
That was Joe Petito, father of missing 22-year-old Gabby Petito. And his message was very direct, very clear. He wants all eyes, all ears, all hearts out there open and looking for Gabby. And the message from you guys was clear this week. I heard from so many brain scratchers. Big thank you to Davey Crocco for keeping me updated on this case as well. You guys want to help raise exposure to this case. That's what we're going to do together here today. It's time to turn on the searchlight for Gabby Petito. Welcome back to Brainscratch Searchlight. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for caring about these cases like I do. This is one that is really troubling. As we get more and more details, things are really not looking very good in this case. And we have a huge challenge. Gabby went traveling with her boyfriend across the country. They made several stops over the course of a little more than a month. She didn't come home, but he did. And because of that, the range of exposure that we need on a case like this is much, much different than other cases where it could be a little more localized, a little more focused. Media has been doing a pretty good job. There's a ton of media on this case. It's of extremely varying quality. We're going to do our best to pick from the best sources, pull together one cohesive version of what's going on in this case. Up to this point, this is a case Gabby has only officially been missing. It's going to be a week when this video releases. This is an extremely new case. And for a case this young, there's a lot of detail that we're getting. And as I mentioned, a lot of it's troubling. Let's go ahead and start with the basics. Over from a poster by the Aware Foundation. A big thank you to the Aware Foundation for always helping on these cases and doing excellent work with their posters here. Gabby Petito, age 22, blonde hair, blue eyes, height 5'5" tall. For weight, they have unknown. Gabby Petito was last seen on August 25th. 2021. Now, I know I told you guys this case is only about a week old, but that's from when the missing persons report was actually filed. We have a gap in that because Gabby was away. Her family didn't necessarily recognize that she was missing. That was a whole process they had to go through and then finally call up law enforcement and ask for help. She was last seen in Grand Teton, Wyoming, heading for Yellowstone National Park. She was traveling in a white 2014 Ford Transit van. They have a picture of it. This is a picture of the actual van. Headed north around the time of the disappearance. However, we've received confirmation that she is no longer traveling in the van. We're going to get a really good reason for that once we get to the sources. It is unknown what Gabby was wearing at the time of her disappearance. Gabby does have "Let It Be" tattooed on her right arm and a tattoo of a triangle with flowers on her left arm. If you have any information on the whereabouts of Gabby Petito, please contact the Suffolk County, New York Police Department. Now, they were the primary on this case. It then shifted. Gabby was actually living in Florida right before she went off on this trip. And now we also have the FBI involved. I think there's a chance of interstate travel that is, of course, going on with this case. If a crime was committed and then interstate travel became part of that crime, that would, of course, fall into the FBI's jurisdiction. So we've got a bunch of different contact numbers for you down below, but on the screen, we're going to have the FBI's number up through this whole video. If you're looking for more direct contact, maybe with localized departments, maybe you know something from that particular area. Maybe you know something about her home life. Maybe you want to talk to the Florida authorities. Maybe you have to remain anonymous. We've got options for all of that in the description box down below. What's going on with this case? Let's get looking. Over at dailyvoice.com, alert issued for 22-year-old New York woman who went missing while traveling. From what I understand, Gabby was raised in the New York area, then moved to Florida a few years ago to live with her boyfriend. They live together in her boyfriend's parents' home before they went off for this trip that started at the beginning of July. Authorities are asking the public's help in locating a 22-year-old New York woman who went missing while traveling. Long Island resident Gabby Petito of Blue Point in Suffolk County was traveling in a white 2014 Ford Transit van. Now, I originally whited this out, but I'm going to put out the plate anyway. QFTG03. Who knows? That might trigger in someone's memory of them seeing that van somewhere. And quite honestly, authorities are looking to put together all the movement of that van. They want the best kind of timeline they can figure from all these different sources. Imagine the challenge that they're dealing with. We've got interstate travel that's happening. A lot of opportunities for cameras and things like that. Like if they are able to drill in on a particular area and go, oh, we're getting these tips from this particular place. Let's go check gas stations and see if there's, cameras where we might have caught something. That time window is very quickly expiring, particularly because it looks like Gabby has been missing since late August, not really mid-September as the missing persons report was called in. She was traveling with a companion when she stopped communicating with friends and family, police said. Petito was reported missing to the Suffolk County Police Department by her family on Saturday, September 11th, just before 7 p.m. So it's not even a week as of when this video comes out. Family members were last in contact with her during the last week of August. Petito is approximately 5'5", and here they're saying 110 pounds. I've heard in other places that she's vegetarian, and based on her photos, I think she might be a little lighter than that, but just as an estimate, around 110 pounds. She has blonde hair and blue eyes and several tattoos, including one on her finger and one on her forearm that reads, "Let it be." Why are we so concerned about this case? In short, her boyfriend came back. The van is back. No one knows where Gabby is. Over at Fox News, she set out on a road trip with her boyfriend in a converted camper van in early July to tour national parks, according to her family. But she disappeared in late August, and they haven't heard from her in more than 2 weeks. Nicole Schmidt, Petito's mother, told Fox News that the last conversation she had with her daughter was on August 25th. And that's a confirmed conversation. I believe it was actually FaceTime. So she knows for certain it was her daughter that she was speaking to on the 25th. That's important because there's a few other points of contact after that, but she's not as sure about those. I don't know if she left Grand Teton or not. I did receive a text from her on the 27th and the 30th, but I don't know if it was technically her or not because it was just a text. I didn't verbally speak to her. Schmidt said that Petito and her boyfriend started their road trip in early July, traveling first from Florida to New York. I believe it was a family function that happened in New York. I think her brother had a graduation. They then left New York and eventually got to Salt Lake City, Utah in August, but were leaving the city amid heavy wildfire smoke. They were traveling in the 2014 Ford white van converted into a camper. Another quote from her mother, "I can't say much, but she's no longer with the van, but people looking for her, I want them to look for her now, not look for that van anymore." So as I mentioned before, essentially the van has been located. The couple started a YouTube channel called Nomadic Static. It wasn't really started for this particular function. I checked the About page, and this channel actually existed way back in 2013. It was probably reformatted at some point. There's no other content on it outside of one video that's posted, 7 minutes, 59 seconds long, posted on August 19th, 2021. So basically this video is posted leading up to her disappearance. What it is kind of what I would consider a fairly typical traveling video. Little touch of van life videos. We've talked about those on the channel before. Of course, we know that there's a missing persons case where a father is using his van life to raise exposure to his missing daughter. But it's basically a travel vlog. Although not a whole lot of directly speaking to the camera, a little bit. And some of the footage I don't think is from this trip necessarily, or if it is, I'm confused about their path of travel, because here we see that they're in San Francisco. I suppose they could have swung all the way out to the West Coast, but they had a plan to go back to Oregon for Halloween. Seems kind of weird to me that they would swing out and then kind of swing back. Is it possible? Yeah. This shot looks like they're in Santa Monica. So I'm just wondering about the time frame of some of this footage. But it is 8 minutes long. Of course, I'll have a link down to it down below so you guys can check it out for yourself. And essentially, you know, I've seen some videos like this in the past. It's a young couple seemingly in love, traveling from place to place, taking pictures, enjoying the sights, enjoying the sounds. Now, another link from their YouTube page is to their Instagram accounts. And this is her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie's Instagram account. Basically, you can kind of parallel these accounts. You can see they're visiting the same locations. They're taking pictures of each other at these different locations. Here's a picture of the two of them together. But his last post seems to be from August 13th. So just a little bit before that video gets posted. Nothing since then. I haven't really looked through his stuff to see if he was a very regular poster. Yeah, it doesn't look like he was super regular because I scrolled down only a little bit and this is already a year prior, August 28th, 2020. So it's probably not too strange, the sporadic posting on his. This is Gabby's Instagram, and we get the last picture here. This is actually a series of pictures and in front of a very interesting mural. We're going to talk more about that in just a second. But also same thing, we can kind of look through the path of travel that they've done. Some other people have done that. They've put together some information. We're going to go through those details in just a moment. And from all accounts, it's, like I said, a picture of a young couple in love, enjoying their time together on this trip. That last photograph seemed to be taken at this place. It's called the Monarch, and it is a mural that is in Utah. This is a location in Ogden, Utah. We actually get an address for it right down here. So we know this is part of the stop. We know that they were there on a specific day or before these postings went up on this is posted August 25th, it looks like. So this could be very, well, it's one of those things. It's Instagram, right? This could be a series of pictures that was taken previously, and Gabby or someone else could have possibly posted them on the 25th. However, her mother says she spoke to her that day, so it seems like it's pretty likely these were posted by Gabby. In terms of the path we're looking at, just from the basics we've talked about, Florida to New York to Salt Lake City, Utah, I mean, almost the whole country has almost been traversed just at that length. So like I said, could they have shot out to San Francisco, Santa Monica? Yeah, it's possible. It seems like they, you know, knowing that they're going to wind up in Oregon at the end of October, seems kind of strange. Like if they really wanted to spend time in these areas to shoot out and hit those first and then kind of come back to the center of the U.S. But who knows? Who knows? It might be that there was particular events at a particular time frame that they were trying to get to that might have made some of those decisions. The Grand Teton National Park is an American national park in northwestern Wyoming. It's approximately 310 acres or 480 square miles. Of course, another big cause for concern, because if this is the last location where she's known to be, what type of search efforts can you do there? How do you even know where to start? Thankfully, there is that wrinkle with this couple that they are internet aware. They're obviously using the internet pretty regularly. We see posts that are happening during their trip. They even uploaded that video. I'm wondering where they stopped to get the bandwidth to upload that video. Those are all connection points. So I know someone in the investigation is working with that data, pulling it all together and putting together a map of all these different stops. The problem is once you get into national parks, I don't know how good connectivity is. And for something like this, once again, to the point of how do you know where to search, I really don't know how you tackle that challenge with this kind of case. The park is only 10 miles south of Yellowstone National Park. We heard that they were likely heading to Yellowstone after stopping at this location. But quite honestly, with the timeframes that are going on here, I don't know if she's part of that trip or not. Seems like she's not part of the trip home. So it's really strange. We could see the park is kind of over on the northwestern end of the state there. Now, this is the map I was telling you about. Someone has gone through. I don't know who did this. I know it's been put up at the Facebook page that's endorsed by the family. I've also seen it on Daily Mail. I'm trying to give credit to whoever did it. But it looks like they went through all the photos and kind of noted the places where they were at and put together this map here. Now, let's see. So July 5th, Monument Rocks. July 8th, Colorado Springs. July 10th, Grand Sand Dunes National Park. July 16th, Zion National Park. July 20th, Cedar Breaks. July 21st, Bryce Canyon National Park. July 26th, Mystic Hot Springs. July 30th, Canyonlands National Park. August 2nd, Arches National Park. August 13th, Moab, Utah. August 24th, checked out of a hotel with fiance in Salt Lake City. Two aspects to that. We're going to hear a story about are they fiancés or not from her mother. But yeah, it seems like they did get a hotel on August 24th in Salt Lake City where they stayed for the night. That might be why she's a little more made up in that series of photos. If that's true, then it does put that series of photos happening extremely close to the last contact. August 25th, final call to family telling them that she was in Grand Teton National Park. Yeah, so back to that point, even this timeline doesn't really have them getting to California. It does note this road trip tour of Colorado and Utah. I mean, if they were kind of on a straight shot and they wanted to cut right across to the LA area and then up to San Francisco, it's possible, but I'm not finding any official confirmation of that. And it's just making me wonder about, was there another trip at some other point where they got that footage and they kind of saved it up for that video that they released? I'm just not certain. Over at the New York Post, I believe a mother's instinct is the most powerful, Nicole Schmidt said during a press conference at her attorney's office. I believe she's going to come home. Her boyfriend has been identified on social media as Brian Laundrie. Schmidt said Laundrie and her daughter attended high school together and then later rekindled their relationship. They'd been living together in Florida for about 2.5 years. As a mom, I had concerns about a daughter going on a road trip in general, but I felt safe. They were together, she said. They had a plan, an itinerary, and we were excited for them. Everyone wanted to be doing what they were doing. Laundrie has returned home to Florida, retained an attorney, and refused to talk to cops, the Daily Mail reported. She was the kind of person who was free, Schmidt added. She went where the day took her. Schmidt said the couple were due to wrap up their trip by visiting friends in Portland at the end of October. The van they were traveling in, a white 2014 Ford Transit with Florida plates, has been recovered, authorities said. That's another thing some people on social media are wondering about. With this series of photos, what is it about the pumpkin? And I think even when I was first looking at it, this is the first photo to come up, and I was like, is her hair cut shorter here? Like, do we know that this photo is from the same time frame as everything else? Because in everything else, it's pretty clear her hair is grown out. It's much longer. But in this photo, it looks like it. I think she just rolled it up behind her shoulders because we can see it's certainly the right length when we have other photos. But the question people are asking, like, was this a photo for Halloween? She even posted with this photo, she put in Happy Halloween. We can see it right up here. Perhaps it was a gift that she bought for her intended destination, for the people that they were going to visit in Portland. I know it seems like I glossed over one fact in this, but I'll talk about it in a moment. The van they were traveling in has been recovered, authorities said. They are performing forensic tests on it and some materials that they found in it. During the press conference, both parents declined to comment on most questions from reporters. And in this press conference, I believe it's her mother and her stepfather. Her father is also remarried. Her father lives in Florida. Part of that was to be closer to her. And so we've got two sets of parents that are essentially all hands on deck trying to help with this case. So the big thing that's been pulling so much attention and focus with this case is obviously Brian coming home, bringing the van home, and not talking publicly, but also not talking to police. And on top of that, retaining an attorney. Does it seem suspicious? I don't know how you can look at that and say, no, that doesn't seem suspicious at all. He's the last person known to be with her. So obviously he's going to be a point of focus for the investigation. Now, I know we've looked at some cases where investigators can really hunt down a bad lead or focus in a particular direction for a long time and get it wrong. In this instance, it seems critically important that Brian shares his information about where they've been, particularly if he has nothing to do in terms of harming her. And this is not a criminal matter at this point. This is just a missing persons investigation. So I think it raises a lot of questions. And I'm seeing instance after instance where different members of the media, they're trying to get in contact with the family. Family won't talk to them. Family's handing them a lawyer's business card, just not answering the door outright. Remember, he lives with his parents. But knowing that the vehicle came back, he came back, she didn't, it looks really, really bad. On top of that, based on some interviews that I've been listening to from the family, it sounds to me like the van is actually her property. And her father raised a pretty important point in one interview I saw with him. He's like, well, hold on a second. If this guy did do something to her and then took her property, drove it across state lines, took it back to his home, isn't there some type of criminal charge already at play here that, can help them in terms of this investigation? I don't know if that's going to be a factor that comes up later around this, but seems really strange. I'm racking my brain just thinking, what could be the reasons? Yes, I know that there's some people out there that would say, always get an attorney, never talk to police. I understand that. Knowing that this is a guy who at one point was looking to marry your daughter, and he's not communicating with you, his family isn't communicating with you. If I was in her family's shoes, I'd be very, very worried, and I'd be super focused on Brian. Despite that, they are working extremely hard to make sure the public knows we don't want you focused on Brian. We want you focused on Gabby. We want you to be talking about her, getting her image out there and making sure that everyone knows that we're looking for her, which I already am just moved by the emotional maturity that they're having in this situation. Is there some lashing out that's happening in his direction? Sure, there's a little bit, but it's nothing like what it could be, particularly nowadays with social media being a regular megahorn for everybody. But brain scratchers, why is he not talking? There's the obvious thought. Outside of that, is there some other potential? I'm struggling to find it. Now, just a few days into the missing persons investigation, we can see here at the Suffolk County Police Department, they release an update saying that the North Point, Florida Police Department is now the lead agency in the Gabby Petito missing persons case. So this is a bit of a shift because originally Suffolk County is where the report is taken. They start the investigation. I think this shift likely happened because the van got back to Florida. So it's the local authorities there that are now taking lead in terms of the forensic investigation that's happening with the van. But the lead for the whole investigation actually shifts to them as well. One question I had when I started hearing about this is, well, when did the van get back there? And we will bump into an answer for that before we're done here today. Over at fox13news.com, the camper van was located at the home of her boyfriend's parents in Northport, Florida, on the weekend of September 11th, the day Gabrielle's mother reported her missing. So effectively, they do a check on like her last known address, it seems like, go there, and they're like, whoa, the van that we thought she's in is here. On the same day that the missing persons report is filed. Agencies from Sarasota County to New York to the FBI are now trying to piece together where she might have gone. In a statement, North PD said, "We currently have no definitive information that a crime took place here in Northport." And I think that's a fair assumption. I don't think anyone really thinks that if something did happen, that it would have happened at that location. It seems likely that it's something happened on the road somewhere. But with that said, the circumstances are odd. The vehicle she was traveling in was located here in Northport, so we are actively gathering local details and any evidence to assist in finding answers. Of course, that question I raised at the start of this article, how long has the vehicle been there, I'm sure is one of the questions that they're looking to answer. Northport Police spokesperson Josh Taylor said they are not ruling anything out, including that Gabrielle may not want to be found. We're hopeful that she's out there somewhere. People just sometimes don't want to communicate, so that's certainly still a viable option, Taylor said. But we have to prepare for something maybe more sinister. And to be perfectly honest, if it wasn't for that condition of Brian coming home and getting a lawyer and not cooperating in this investigation, I don't know that they would even be speaking about the case in that matter, that we might have to prepare for something more sinister. Typically with missing persons cases like this, you talk to the last person known to be with them. They give you the details. Oh, she went walking off into the woods at this particular location. And then the search is focus on that location. And that's the next step in the process. We're having trouble getting to that next step in this process because of this lack of communication. What's justifying that lack of communication, or what's the answer? What's the reason for that lack of communication is a really, really troubling question in this case. Now, does that make Brian a suspect? Not a suspect exactly, but he's certainly on the radar. Over at WRDW.com, missing woman's boyfriend is person of interest after returning from road trip without her, police say. Police said Laundrie had not made himself available to be interviewed or provided any helpful details. Quote, as a father, I can imagine the pain and suffering Gabby's family is going through, said North Point Police Chief Todd Garrison. We are pleading with anyone, including Brian, to share information with us on her whereabouts in the past few weeks. The lack of information from Brian is hindering this investigation. The answers will eventually come out. We will help find Gabby, and we will help find anyone who may be involved in her disappearance. Investigators are growing increasingly concerned about Petito's well-being. Landry's attorney, who is located on Long Island, released a statement saying in part, it is our understanding that a search has been organized for Miss Petito in or near Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. On the advice of counsel, the Laundrie family is remaining in the background at this juncture and will have no further comment. Gabby Petito and her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, fought a week before she was last seen, according to a Utah police report. Very big cause for concern that this information only really started hitting in the last 24 hours, but hit in a very big way. A police report is actually released, and not just a police report, BodyCam footage also released around this interaction. I'll have this link also in the description box down below so you can read it for yourself. I've already read through this thing word for word. Some interesting points. It's clear that there's an argument going on between the two. It's clear that there's some physical interaction. The official conclusion seems to be that Gabby is actually the person that is doing more of the attack, despite the fact that one of the original witnesses says, I believe it had something to do with a man attacking a woman. But let's get to some of the details. According to the report, police spoke with Petito and Laundrie while responding to a call of a possible domestic disturbance between the couple in Moab, Utah. Police later classified the situation as a mental health crisis after speaking with both Petito and Laundrie. And looking at the footage, I have to say, looking at the footage of Gabby on YouTube and then looking at the footage of her obviously extremely upset, I'm wondering if there was a very severe mental health component here. And there's a few parts of this report that are redacted. I don't know if she was on any type of medication for any particular disorders or anything like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if that was a component in this. There is just a very, very big difference. And yes, I know, I mean, Instagram and YouTube, I mean, it's, everyone's trying to make things look a certain way. Police body cam, you're seeing what they're seeing out there, in real life on the side of a road effectively. But outside of that, she seems extremely frazzled to the point that some of her explanation it's not that it's hard to follow, but it's not making a ton of logical sense. It honestly, I guess you could look at it from the perspective of she might be so upset about what she's arguing with Brian about, but she doesn't want to be honest to the police about it. There's some potential for that outside of, I don't know. I'm feeling like there's maybe a lack of medication or a medication issue, something like that in the footage. But obviously you you can't make a super strong determination. The links are down there. You guys can watch it for yourself. The body cam footage is over an hour long. I think Gray also just posted the footage in its entirety over on his channel. The incident happened on August 12th. A witness called police reporting that the couple had engaged in some sort of altercation. Police learned the incident unfolded after Laundrie had tried to walk away following an argument. Petito didn't want to be separated from the male and began slapping him, the report said. He grabbed her face and pushed her back as she pressed upon him and the van. He tried to lock her out and succeeded, except the driver's door. She opened that and forced her way over him and into the vehicle before it drove off. So there's a lot of physical interaction that we're talking about with this report. And I'm kind of seeing it written a few different ways. Him being slapped, him being hit in the arm is another description. There's effectively two officers' perspectives in that report. The Moab City Police Department in Utah released body camera footage of their interaction with Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie from back on August 12th. It's clear that the argument didn't stop there, because when the officer's coming up on them, they're swerving. They literally hit the curb on the side of the road. They're going 45 in like a 15 mile per hour zone. So he gets them over, and I got to say that the officer seems to be doing a great job trying to diffuse the situation, separates them immediately, interviewing them separately, and they even go farther. We'll get to that detail here. The more than hour-long video shows police immediately separating Petito and Laundrie before each describes the incident. Petito is emotional. In the police report, Laundrie is listed as the victim and Petito as a suspect. So I know there's a lot of people thinking about this. Oh, the guy came back, lawyered up, won't talk to anyone. It kind of twisted my mind to know that in the police report, they actually list Laundrie as the victim and Petito as the suspect. But Chief Brett Edge said there was not enough evidence for charges. Neither Brian nor Gabrielle were the reporting party, he said. Officers conducted an investigation and determined that insufficient evidence existed to justify criminal charges. Police said all parties agreed that Petito had slapped Laundrie and that he had not struck her, and that there were no serious injuries and no party wanted to press charges. Petito reportedly told officers she suffers from serious anxiety and other redacted medical conditions, and police categorized the incident as a mental, emotional health break rather than a domestic assault. Petito told police that the arguments between the couple had been building over the past couple of days. They agreed to separate for the night, and police helped Laundrie get a hotel room while Petito took possession of the van. So once again, I think that's just a strong indicator that the van likely is registered and belongs to Gabby. According to police, the couple did not wish to separate, but officers required them to do so in lieu of no charges being filed. A responding officer deemed Laundrie to be at low risk danger or harm as a result of his proximity to his fiancée, Gabby. Northport Police Chief Todd Garrison spoke out about the case on Good Morning America. He said that there are no plans to obtain a search warrant for Brian's parents' home where the two lived. We don't have a crime in this. We're investigating a missing person. 2 people went on a trip and 1 person returned, and that person is not talking to us, he said. He also added that Laundrie has the pieces to the puzzle that we need to be able to find Gabby. Not just that, he's just the complete logical next step to start the search, to be able to find her. Like, it's such a huge stopping block. If there is a criminal aspect to this crime, this is severely impeding justice. I would think that there might be other charges that might come around this as well. And I'm wondering if, honestly, could his family be held responsible at some point? If they happen to have more information about this and they're sitting on that as well. Another article from the Post, Gabby Petito's final text message to mom revealed. Okay, so we're going to get to hear why she's a little suspicious of the last one. The last text message from Gabby Petito's phone warned that she didn't have phone service in Yosemite National Park and was sent 2 days before her van emerged in Florida, her mother told the Post on Wednesday. No service in Yosemite, the message read. I do not believe the text on August 30th was from my daughter, Schmidt said. And she's got a really good reason for that. Police released a statement saying they figured out when that van got back. That van was back in Florida on the 1st of September. So Her quote, "The van was in Florida on the 1st of September. I think I can do the math." Now, what's also interesting about that is it means that there's likely another ping from Gabby's phone that happened when the connection happened for that text to be sent. Where was that ping? Was it in Florida? Was it on the route back? If it's not out in Wyoming, it's going to make things look extremely strange. And I'm pretty sure if it is something like, that text message is sent from Brian's home, I think that person of interest is going to turn into a suspect really, really quick. We're seeing it more often nowadays. Non-body homicide prosecutions, missing persons cases that will all of a sudden flip into homicide investigations despite the fact that the body isn't found. I think a condition like that could be a significant factor in maybe flipping one of those switches. Continuing at Daily Mail, we hear about the frustration that Gabby's mother has gone through, not just in trying to contact Brian, but Brian's family. Keep in mind, this is a relationship that's been going on for years at this point. The mother of Gabby Petito sent her daughter's boyfriend and his family desperate text messages looking for her, but was ignored. On September 10th, she reached out to Brian and his mother, Roberto Landry. "I got no replies," Schmidt said. "I knew something was wrong. I felt something was off, and I needed to get her reported missing immediately." Detective Tracy Berry of the Suffolk County Police Department has been our angel taking on this case. "She was the only one who listened and cared enough to take this on," Schmidt said. Schmidt said Brian's sister Cassie is the only member of Brian's family who has spoken to authorities. I'm kind of curious about that as well. The fact that anyone from Brian's family has agreed to speak to the authorities. I'm wondering, is this a sister that lives at the home, or is this someone that's outside of the home? And maybe they, knew she didn't really know anything. Go ahead, let her be interviewed. I'm not sure. Or is this a family member maybe that does know something and is trying to do the right thing in a very, very bad situation? That's another bit of conversation around this. I saw some comments from Gabby's stepfather, and he was saying, like, look, I know we love our kids. Everyone loves their kids, wants to protect them. But we've also got to help them grow and mature and teach them what's right. And even in a case like this, you've got to show them the way to accept responsibility and accept consequences. If this is a situation where Brian has done something and his family is aware of it, are they really helping him by protecting him from it at this point? If this is a situation where Gabby has been harmed, are they literally playing a waiting game at this point, hoping that evidence is going to degrade to the point where no charges can ever be filed? And if he did do something to Gabby, the big thing I'm concerned about is for the previous almost month and a half, they were out there traveling all these locations. From their social media, I can see they had a thing about not wanting to be around where other people were visiting those locations. They were kind of always going off on their own. Is there some location that he found in that trip that he could have taken her back to? And if that's true, it could be anywhere on that chain. And that is thousands of miles. So this is looking like an extremely, extremely tough case. Gabby's mother continued, "We don't understand why he's doing this. Everyone's assuming the worst and thinking he's guilty of this, but I don't want to believe that. I want to believe she's just in need of help out there and that everyone needs to keep searching." The distraught mother also clarified that Gabby and Brian had been engaged, but decided to call it off and go back to just dating because they felt they were too young for marriage. In light of the disappearance, Schmidt said she's now viewing everything under a new lens. "Maybe the relationship wasn't what I thought," she said. I'd certainly be questioning it too. Why isn't he, at a minimum, talking to investigators, but even outside of that, helping with search efforts? We've looked into enough cases here on the channel where that question comes up, and in some of those conclusions, unfortunately, it's because it's the worst that we're worried about that is the actual case. Petito's family slams reprehensible boyfriend. Effectively, they release a statement through their attorney, but you could tell this is a statement that's actually been written by someone in the family. Family lawyer Richard Stafford slammed Brian Laundrie for leaving Petito, quote, in the wilderness. Brian left Gabby in the wilderness with grizzly bears and wolves while he sits in the comfort of his home, the statement reads. In his home. Brian, how could you do this to Gabby? You selfishly remain silent while Gabby's all alone in the wilderness. Brian, your silence is reprehensible. We beg you to do the right thing and help us bring Gabby home. Of course, we know Brian is avoiding speaking to the police and his girlfriend's distraught family. Quote, Brian is refusing to tell Gabby's family where he last saw her, the statement says. Brian is also refusing to explain why he left Gabby all alone and drove her van to Florida. These are critical questions that require immediate answers. The Schmidt and Petito family beg the Laundrie family to not, quote, remain in the background, but to help find who Brian referred to as the love of his life. How does Brian stay in the background when he is the one person that knows where Gabby is located? Really strong and direct questions, and I don't imagine any of those have an easy answer. Over at news.yahoo.com, Gabby deserves more. Gabby Petito's stepfather says Brian Laundrie's silence is unacceptable as he joins the search in Wyoming. Gabby's got two sets of parents. Like I said, they're all pushing on all fronts. Her stepfather actually goes out to Wyoming to help lead some type of search effort out there, despite the fact we don't have solid information on where that search effort should be. Schmidt, who is the partner of Petito's mother, Nicole, said he had known Petito since she was 3. Petito's father, Joe Petito, and her stepmother, Tara, have been helping the investigation in Florida, Schmidt said. He said he had traveled to help the search in Wyoming because there was no family member assisting the police investigation there. This is where she was last known to be going, he said. Since we got here, we've been working almost around the clock, just trying to gather information and just let it be known that we're out here, he said. It's been exhausting, but we're focused on what we need to do, and that's to bring Gabby home. As of Thursday, the day that I'm filming this, Petito has been considered missing for 6 days and has been alone, likely in the wilderness, for nearly 2 weeks. Over at uk.sports.yahoo.com, Gabby Petito's Instagram account disappeared for 4 hours. So another thing that kind of shook up, especially the social media community, her Instagram account was there. All of a sudden, it was gone. And in particular, I think because we're concerned that someone else might have her phone. Those text messages might have not been legit. Now, something that is probably easily accessible from her cell phone gets seemingly deactivated. But is that really what happened? The Instagram account on which the missing Gabby Petito documented her road trip before her disappearance disappeared from around 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The social media site said it was a mistake. A spokesperson for Instagram told Insider that the account was mistakenly taken down when the company was investigating fraudulent accounts claiming to be Petito, and that the real account was later reinstated. I'm curious if that's legit. I imagine that there's probably so much content over there. There's people leaving messages over there that are very strongly worded. And with how big this story has become over this past week, I think the volume of messages is probably extremely high. Not that I think it's going to hurt the servers or anything like that. It could be that Instagram is just concerned about maybe some of the content that's going there. As a matter of fact, more recent reports that I saw later today are saying that it seems like commenting might be being slowed down there or possibly even stopped altogether on her account. But I don't know, because the last time I went and saw it, it looked like there was new posts there. So not 100% sure on that. Over at Daily Beast, in what may or may not be a coincidence, we got this whole, you pull the internet into something and we've got analysts all over the place looking at this case every which way. And this is an occurrence where when I first heard about it, I was like, really? Like, could this be possible? I guess it could be possible. There is another crime that has happened in this area where a couple has been killed. And one of those couple were at the location where Brian and Gabby had their argument, not at the location. Let me rephrase that. One of those couple used to work at the location where Brian and Gabby were seen fighting. I don't think she worked there currently. So the connectivity feels really, really loose. That couple disappears a day after seemingly that fight happened. So it's one of those things you have to think about the conditions. You know, Brian and Gabby are on the road. They're driving off somewhere. A day later, this couple goes missing from a location that they were at. Is there really some point of connectivity in that? It seems kind of weak, but believe it or not, we're going to see some information that maybe law enforcement isn't completely ruling it out. In what may or may not be a coincidence, a couple living out of their van in Moab, Kylan Schulte and Kristen Beck, went missing on August 13th after complaining to friends about a weirdo who had set up camp right near them. Schulte, who worked at the Moonflower Co-op where Gabby and Laundrie were seen fighting, and Beck were found murdered a few days later. No suspects have been publicly identified and no arrests have been made in the case. On top of that, we get a quote from Laundrie's lawyer, Stephen Bertolino, and he said that the formality of being named a person of interest hasn't really changed anything about Laundrie's situation since he was already the focus of detectives, and he's still not planning to say a word. Here's a quote from his lawyer. Many people are wondering why Mr. Laundrie would not make a statement or speak with law enforcement in the face of Miss Petito's absence. In my experience, intimate partners are often the first person law enforcement focuses their attention on in cases like this, and the warning that any statement made will be used against you is true, regardless of whether my client had anything to do with Miss Petito's disappearance. As such, on the advice of counsel, Mr. Laundrie is not speaking on this matter. Now, we look into a lot of missing persons cases here. Is a significant other often a point of focus? Yes. Is it 100%? No, not at all, because of the conditions of the disappearance. And that's the thing. This, honestly, it feels pretty brazen to me for him to try to bring this up as a point of like, oh, well, this is why my client would need to be protected because cops are always coming after the significant other. In a case like this, where they're going to go is the source of information for where they were last seen. Now, who is that in this case? It does happen to be her significant other. That's much different. When a kid goes missing from school, do they investigate the parents? Sure. Do they become the focus of the investigation? No. There's plenty of other cases we've seen where people go missing from all kinds of different situations. They don't become the significant others don't become the main focus of the investigation. Point of last contact, very important. Who's the last person to see that person? Extremely important. How you can kind of just lay those to the side. And also, let's be clear, if this is a case of foul play, we have statistics on those types of cases. We know that a significant amount of those cases, up to like 50% of those cases, are going to be the significant other. So it's interesting to me that the lawyer is even kind of putting this statement out there in the way he is, because to me, it sounds more like he's talking about a foul play situation. It doesn't sound like he's talking about a missing persons case. Look, if this was a situation where Brian legit has nothing to do with her disappearance, but he's still intimidated by the law enforcement aspect, worried his words could be twisted, he could be put through some type of interrogation tactics and all this, you come home, you get your lawyer, you give your lawyer the information to pass along to law enforcement or agree to be interviewed with law enforcement with your lawyer present. There are simple mechanisms for establishing a chain of communication that could be helpful if this is legit a missing persons case that he's not involved in. Her running away from the situation, her leaving him from a location. There's other instances where this shouldn't be as big of a problem unless we're looking at this possibility that he has something to do with her not being available for her to reach out to her family right now. So I don't know. It's troubling. You know, It's troubling for me to see a lawyer try to make a point like this. And I think this point in this with these particular conditions is just ignoring so many other aspects of the reality of a missing persons, not a murder investigation, but a missing persons investigation. It seems to me like his lawyer is saying there's something else that's going on here that the public doesn't know about that's going to be much more in Brian's interest for him to not be a part of any of this. And if that's the case, what could that be? Doesn't seem like it's as simple as, I last saw her at this McDonald's where she ran off and she said that I don't want to see you anymore. So what about the other case with the couple and Gabby's case? Are these connected? Here's just a little more detail. I'm trying not to press into this too much, but I just want to try to round this out for you guys. Moab residents Kylan Schulte and her wife, Crystal Beck Turner, were shot dead in La Salle Mountains of Utah on the August 14th weekend. The bodies of the lesbian couple were discovered later by their friends. Now, as the investigation on Gabby Petito's missing case unfolds, police have found more and more bizarre correlations between the two cases. Gabby and Brian were spotted fighting on August 12th in front of the Moonflower Co-op, while Kylan Schulte and Crystal Turner went missing on August 13th, the following day. Schulte used to work at Moonflower Co-op as a cashier for 4 years. That's it for the connections that I'm seeing. Even this article goes on, but none of it really addresses any other direct connections between the two. So we've got, it seems like it's a very loose connection of Kylan being a former employee at this place where Gabby and Brian get in an argument. Plus we've got this thing offset by a day in terms of when Kylan and Crystal are last seen. On top of that, there's this other fact in this case. Investigators were informed that Kylan had mentioned to her friends that if something happened to them, they were murdered. Kylan had continued by saying that there was a creepy man around their camp and they had been intimidated by him, the search warrant said. We know because of the timeline that Gabby is still around. She still has FaceTime contact with her mother 10 days after, more than 10 days after this. They're not describing a creepy couple. They're not mentioning that there's this creepy guy and he had a girl with him. All they're talking about is this one creepy man that was around their camp. And quite honestly, I would imagine that that's probably number one suspect in terms of that investigation. So it just, I don't know, for me, the details don't seem to be lining up very strongly based on what we know publicly about these cases. But over at Fox News, Utah investigators not ruling anything out in double homicide near missing Gabby Petito incident. There's no real details that they go into this article to strengthen it up. They're just basically saying they did get a quote from law enforcement and they're saying, we're not ruling anything out. They're still considering that there's a possibility these two things can be related. It's just strange based on what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing strong enough connectivity, but who knows? There's a lot more details that we don't know about publicly with both of these cases. Over at the Daily Beast, the boyfriend released a statement breaking his silence as he reportedly refuses to speak to her family or the police. Did he really release a statement? Is it anything substantial? I just want to note at this point, there are a lot of organizations that are effectively starting to find clickbaity titles on this. And I don't think that this is really a big statement at all. Landry's attorney said in a statement, his attorney said in a statement, this is an extremely difficult time for both the Petito family and the Laundrie family. I understand that a search has been organized for Miss Petito in or near Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming on behalf of the Laundrie family. It is our hope that the search for Miss Petito is successful and that Miss Petito is reunited with her family. On the advice of counsel, the Laundrie family is remaining in the background at this juncture and will have no further comment. Quite honestly, I don't think the family would even have to authorize the lawyer to make a comment like that. On behalf of the family, it's our hope that the search for Miss Petito is successful. I mean, that's certainly not something where the family sat in a room with their lawyer for a few hours and mulled over the message that they were going to put out publicly, which I imagine is much more in line with what happened with the comment that we saw from the Petito family. Now, some other strange things happening here. Once again, I don't even think these would probably be discussed, but we have everyone concerned about the fact that those text messages might have not been Gabby and that someone else might have had her phone. Series of haunting songs appeared on Gabby Petito's Spotify before she went missing. A series of songs about love and heartache appeared on missing Long Island native Gabby Petito's Spotify account a day after her mother last heard from her. Here's a quote from some lyrics from one of the songs. "Your woman is your angel, is your left side, is your whole life, easily the most beautiful thing in the world." Matt Berry's song Woman begins. "She'll soothe you, she'll accuse you, she'll confuse you, she'll lose you, but always be the best friend you have in the world." The songs appeared on the Mountaintops playlist on September 1st, a day after the 22-year-old's mother, Nicole Schmidt, last received texts from her daughter's phone. Petito apparently shared that playlist and the Spotify account with her boyfriend, Brian. 2 other songs by the same singer popped in there. One is called Take My Hand, which is about picking up a stranger at a bar, and another called The Badger's Wake, which is about an animal decomposing. I think so many of us are imagining a situation where Brian might have been responsible for harming her at some point, and then what does he go into? Where does that take him in terms of actions, and what types of things does he do? Quite honestly, I know this artist, but not as a singer. I know him as kind of a comedic actor, Matt Berry, and I went listening to his music. I know he's very serious about his music. I cannot imagine a 22-year-old listening to his music personally. The music has almost like a 60s vibe to it. It's very, very retro. For that matter, I mean, I don't think Brian is much older than her. But a young woman listening to Matt Berry, I don't know. There is an official Facebook page on this. Of course, I'll have that in the links down below, facebook.com/Where's Gabby. And they have a warning that they put out just recently. The family has authorized only 2 fundraising efforts. You might see other efforts out there. There is a GoFundMe that's legit. Of course, we'll have a link to that down below. But they're also talking about an effort by their longtime friends at the John McNamara Foundation. And there's another link for that. The GoFundMe has been doing extremely well. We could see just from earlier today, it was at 43,000. I just refreshed. It's at 47, coming up very quickly to 50. We don't know what's happening with this other donation method at the Johnny Mac Foundation. So I thought, considering the GoFundMe is already looking pretty healthy, and they're both effectively there for the same thing. This family is searching for her on the other side of the country. Travel expenses, hotel and lodging, professional services they might need for different experts on this search. We're going to make a donation on behalf of myself and my amazing supporters to the Johnny Mac Foundation directly for this donation link that's going to Gabby's case. But I'll have both links down below. And if you guys want to join me in supporting this family, please do so. Also, if you have Facebook, be sure to just come to the Facebook, give them a follow, show them your support. And if you can help in some search efforts, if they figure out a location, please jump in there and help this family. Where is Gabby Petito? That's where the case is at this point. That is all the pertinent information that I could find up to now. Admittedly, we're a week in. What does next week bring? I don't know, but we will keep you guys updated here on the channel. Before I end today's video, I have to thank some new supporters over on Patreon. A big thank you to Maik W., Catherine R., and Sharon Calabresi for joining on Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com, where you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or buy us a coffee like Melanie White recently did. We really appreciate your support. We always keep these presentations almost completely ad-free, outside of one ad at the start and one ad at the end. We can't do that without your help, so we really appreciate you guys supporting us over at lordandarts.com. Remember to share this video. We need all eyes open and looking for Gabby. We want to support this family in every which way that we can. And if there are any family members that want to contact me directly, you can email me at john@lordandarts.com. We've also got a link in the description box down below to our missing persons tips. It's always there in Searchlight videos. If you ever need it, just come to a Searchlight video. Please use that link. Take care, everyone. Have a safe and wonderful weekend. I'll be back on Monday with a brand new episode of Case Cracked right here on the Lord and Arch channel.